Hello? Can you all hear me well? Cool. All right, so we're about to get started. Just before I start my presentation, I just wanted to do just a little bit of a warning. Whatever you guys see today, whatever you learn today, it's your responsibility what you do with it, all right? So my presentation is called Stranger Things, the Internet version. Just before I start my presentation, I want to ask a question. Who here has seen Stranger Things, the series? Great. For those who haven't, it's like this group of kids that, are trying to face this monster, your typical series, right? And the monster's really scary, yada, yada, yada. Now we're getting season 2 with an even bigger monster. That's the basis of it. So who are we? And even though I'm the single person doing the presentation here today, all of the work you see today is the effort of a team. Some of them are sitting here in front. We're BinaryEdge. And to explain to you guys very simply what we do, we have a distributed scanning platform. We look at all the IPv4 addresses on the internet, some IPv6 addresses. We check which ports they have open, which services they're running, and then we do certain things for certain services. And I'll explain a little bit what those things are. So our agenda for today is very, very simple. I've been wanting to do a presentation this style for a really long time because we find really scary stuff on the internet, and every time we come on a stage, and it's like my second or third time presenting at Pixels, and we always do really technical presentations, but this one is actually really simple. I want to show you guys some of the scariest things we've found connected to the internet, and the objective for this presentation is that when you leave this presentation, you go home and you make sure that the devices you're plugging into your network, the devices your family is plugging into the internet and into your local networks is not exposing you guys to attacks or to other type of things. And at the same time, it's important that you guys understand in security we have a big problem, is that we lack technical people. So we need help. If you see someone connecting something of the IoT to the network that you guys believe shouldn't be there, please let them know, because there's only so many security people that can slap them in the face. So I'm Tiago Henriques, I'm the CEO of BinaryEdge, and I get to have a really fun job because I get to play with both data science and I get to play with cybersecurity. And when you combine both of these things, we get to have a lot of fun finding really cool things on the internet, reporting really cool things to our clients. So there are two types of exposure that I want to talk to you guys today. There's the exposure at the people level, and that's you guys, the things you plug at home. And then there's organizations. If you guys have looked at the news over the last couple of weeks, you might have seen that Equifax got hacked, Deloitte got hacked, and that's because they were exposing things to the internet that they shouldn't be. And these types of exposure are actually very different because companies expose software that has not been updated or software that is not correctly firewalled, while people are exposing their, coffee makers, their televisions, and butt plugs, all sorts of crazy stuff. This is me and my team. So if you have seen Stranger Things, this is essentially us. And these are the faces we do every day when we look at the results of our scans. And it's because we see some really scary stuff. If you guys are not following these guys on Twitter yet, do it. It's a really fun Twitter feed, and they essentially go through all these crazy startups that build Internet of Things materials, and they really mock them, and there's all sorts of crazy stuff. So do check them out on Twitter. It's really, really cool, and it will fit into some of the things we'll look at today. So we'll start by MQTT. MQTT is a protocol very much used in IoT, and it's actually a pretty simple protocol. You've got a broker that has clients connected to it, and the clients can send messages to each other or to different things that are connected to this broker. What's the problem? People don't use brokers very smartly. There are open brokers on the internet with no type of authentication at all, and these are some of the things we found on open brokers on the internet. So we found hospitals that were sharing patient data on these open brokers, and these are things you can connect, see the messages, send your own messages with no type of authentication at all. So we found hospitals, we found radiation meters, power stations, we found a prison last year as well. This got reported and they actually fixed it, which was pretty cool. And we found all sorts of stuff. This year, we make a world report, and this year we found 37,514 open brokers on the internet. So what does the data look like? To give you guys an idea, as I mentioned, we've found nuclear monitoring devices on the internet, and this is exactly what it looks like. You can see the percentages, what sort of sensors exist on these things, what sort of messages are being passed through. You also have it for hospitals, as I mentioned, and you can see here the names of some of the hospitals. You can see patient data as well, as you can see here, for example, for a patient ID, and you can see the systolic and all the measurements and dystolic as well. And again, these are all things that are being exposed with no type of authentication or protection. MQTT is actually really cool because there are lots of things you can do. You guys should check out the presentation by Lucas Lundgren because he found out that you can actually make things execute code or do SQL injection, all sorts of crazy things. People also love using MQTT for this thing called OnTracks. OnTracks, as you can see on their website, sells itself as a software that allows you to keep track of your own location, your friends and family, with privacy in mind. The problem is that this privacy goes out the window when you start using an open broker. And you're actually able to track people across their day because their phones are constantly sending to an MQTT broker all their GPS locations. And people really, really love OnTracks. I think it's the top software we've found on MQTT. All these slides will be available later in case you guys want to explore the data. And as I said, people really love OnTracks. These are all different examples of things we found with OnTracks. Of course, we've also found power stations, as you guys can see here, and you are actually able not just to get measurements, but turning on and off as well, and send commands to all of these power controllers. It's seriously crazy stuff. On top of that, for some reason, and this is something we actually haven't been able to figure out, there's an SMS software working on an open MQTT broker. And here you can see the text of the SMSs, you can see the name of the people, you can see their mobile phones. I have no clue why this is going to an open MQTT broker. Also, for some reason, people use MQTT to send their phone backups. So not only do you get their SMSs, you also get all the images that are stored on their phones. Again, I have no clue why people are doing this. So, as I mentioned to you guys, we have a distributed scanning platform. The UI looks like this. These things up here are three different protocols to manage remote machines. RDP is usually used to manage Windows machines, VNC, Linux, even macOS as well, and X11 again, usually on Linux. And essentially what I'm doing here is that I'm typing a word and I'm actually going to search on the text inside of the screenshots that we take of all these protocols. So I'm not looking at banners, I'm specifically taking an OCR approach to the images, extract the text, and then the text I type here searches for those words inside the images. So some of the things that we find, a water plant, and it's really funny because, you know, I chose this screenshot for an interesting point. There is a login button there, but if the company doesn't bother to authenticate the VNC that allows you to get the controller of this power plant, what do you think is going to happen with the password? I haven't tried it, but I will bet whatever you guys want, it's probably a default password, like admin or admin password. Actually, it even says here that the login is the default, so, you know, it's not something you really want to connect to the internet or leave it there. Again, a generator as well, and you guys can see all the different buttons. We could, you know, start pressing all of these buttons or have a bot that crawls all of these things and start pressing these buttons. And as I mentioned to you guys, when I typed power on our portal, you guys should see the word power here somewhere if, you know, things didn't fail. Let's see, there you go, power factor. It's because we are really searching inside these images. Again, an engine as well. This is some test engine for a car in a factory, and it's just open on the internet because it's fun. Another water station processing, again with lots of interesting stuff like citric acid and all the different tanks and lots of buttons. And you can think about really, well, terrifying scenarios. You know, some people from security would say fun scenarios, but they can also be called terrifying scenarios, which is what happens if you put these things working at maximum level and continuously press the reset alarm or turn off the alarms. Does something explode? Does it still work? Does it automatically shut down? I don't know. I bet, you know, you guys don't know either, but these things should not be connected to the internet. These are the type of things that you should be going to the companies that handle, water, electricity in your villages, in your cities, and asking them, what measures are you taking to make sure that, things are not exploding in my home or near my home or endangering my family? Do not let them just take for granted these things, Question what they are doing to improve their security, because their security is actually affecting you guys as well. So next up, gas. Same thing. Oil tanks and gas tanks that are open to the internet. And again, what I mentioned before, the reset alarm button right here. No authentication request, nothing like that. Another one, and we really do get lots of these. Bridges, and this is for the Kolkata Metro East-West Metro UG1 in Kolkata. This is a tunneling system. So as I said, we do catch all sorts of things on the internet. Another one with a gigantic e-stop button here. And you could stop the discharge, you could do tank offloads, bottom field. You've got safety button there as well. You're logged in as supervisor. So, yeah. Prescription. If anyone here needs medicine in the US, it's great. You've got pharmacies open on the internet where you just log into them, file your own prescription, go and get your medicine. Hospitals, same thing, patient data. Hospitals are supposed to actually follow certain norms and regulations to protect patient data. Well, are you guys sure the hospitals you're attending, the hospitals you go to, are following these measures? Again, question everything. You guys are patients, you guys are users of these infrastructures. Go up to these companies and ask them, question them, what are they doing to improve their security? And one thing, by the end of my talk, I'm actually going to allow you guys to ask me some words, and I'll type it here, and we'll look at some live results. So start thinking of some words that you'd like to have a look at. Next up, we're going to look at SCADA. And SCADA is a set of protocols. Well, I don't say just protocols, but it's an industry that essentially it's critical in industrial systems. And these things are really, really fun because we find lots of SCADA protocols open on the internet, but it's really scary as well at some point because we don't know. SCADA can go from being the office of a factory, like the door, as it can go from being a nuclear station. And most of the times we're actually not able to identify what's sitting behind those controllers. These are the different protocols that exist in SCADA. And these are some of the things we've found as well. An integrated system for treatment of livestock waste. Again, some other crazy controller with engines and, all sorts of things. As here is really cool as well. You've got an entire grid of fans in some field with water treatment or something like that, and you can just press the different fans and look at what they're doing, reconfigure them, all sorts of things. And then we come to Portugal. So we looked at a protocol called Fox, and if you guys can read here, it says Cristo Rei, which for those of you that don't know, it's like this gigantic statue we've got near Ponte 25 de Abril. And here's the thing, we don't know what this is. It can be the elevator, it can be some lights, it can be a gate. We don't know. We know that it belongs to the zone of Cristo Rei, but we have no clue and no one has been able to tell us what this is at all. And hey, Portugal, woohoo, represented on the internet. Another thing as well, the AVAC of an hospital here in Portugal. And the AVAC is the things that controls the temperature. Like, if you want it warmer or colder, all of that. Well, if you guys want to mess around with one from an hospital, again, there is one fully open to the internet. As well, one thing that we find very commonly is tanks. And these are things like in gas stations, the pump fuels. There's tons and tons of this stuff open to the internet, and you're able to monitor if the tanks are full, if they're not, when they're being used, when they're not being used. You can also see where they're located. For example, this is in St. Charles, San Andreas, CA. You can see all sorts of information. And again, what I'm talking is that we have millions and millions of these things on our database. I'm not talking 1, 2, or 3, or 4. I'm talking millions of these things on our database. So, then we come into the next phase. We come into organization exposing things they shouldn't to the internet. In the beginning of this year, actually it wasn't the beginning, it was around April if I remember correctly, March, April. a set of tools was released to the internet that belonged to the NSA. It was a set of backdoors that they used in their operations and all of that. And in there were lots of different software, from things they used to treat data, from backdoors, all sorts of stuff. And one of the backdoors that was there was called double pulsar. You guys might have heard of it, that initially lots of machines started getting infected with double pulsar, and then came WannaCry, which actually started locking the machines and asking for Bitcoin. I'm sure you guys must have heard of that, right? So when this set of tools first was released, we actually started scanning for it. It was pretty cool because you had access to all the tools, so that means we could run it in our lab, extract all the packets, and we would be able to identify machines worldwide that were infected with this. And lots of people actually attacked one specific backdoor called double pulsar. And these are some of the numbers we found. So on 21st of April, we were seeing 106,410 machines infected, and it went all the way up to 428 in a really short amount of time. I think by the 28th or the 29th, it actually reached 500,000. But what does this graph mean? What this graph means is that it was a tool that was being used in mass hacking. So it was a pretty cool Trojan from an engineering perspective. It worked well, it stayed in memory, and people like hacker groups were just using it regularly to infect other machines. It was a pretty cool backdoor. We as a company collaborated with another guy, Portuguese, OSX Reverser. By the way, he has the best Portuguese domain that anyone can have. And he's a really cool guy. So what he does for a living, he grabs tools and he reverse engineers them. That means he understands how they work. For double pulsar, it was pretty easy for us to scan for it because we had all the scripts. We just identified which port was being used. We would send a packet and we would receive something in response, and that meant that machine was infected, right? That was pretty simple. For another backdoor that I won't say the name, and I'll explain in a little bit why I won't say the name, it was a lot more complicated. But it's an interesting story. Instead of, like in double pulsar, as I said, we found up to 500,000 machines infected. But for this one, we only found 32. And we only found 23 for a set of months. This number didn't go up, this number didn't go down. And what this meant was this backdoor specifically was not being used massively by hacker groups. These were probably still active shells from the original owners. But this thing, to scan this thing, it was actually an absolute pain in the ass. Why? Because double pulsar is very simple. Double pulsar opens the SMB port, you send it a specific packet, and you get a specific response. This thing actually listens on all the ports, and you need to send a very specific set of packets that it will trigger opening a specific port, and then you'll get a response. So that's why we had to collaborate with a reverse engineer. He reverse engineered how the protocol worked, what the packets look like. We built a module for our platform, we deployed it, we started scanning worldwide, and we found 23 IP addresses infected with this backdoor, which again, were probably still belonging to the original owners of these tools. I won't even say which IPs were infected by this. It's not a question you should bother to ask me in the Q&A. I won't say where they were located because these are very sensitive topics, but it was some pretty cool work that we did, and we had a lot of fun. So how can you guys and your companies be secure? The rules are actually pretty simple. The basic rules, at least. Update and patch. Don't keep using Windows XP in your servers or Windows 2000, 2012, whatever. Update your stuff. Updating can be hard, software breaks, we get all of that, but update your stuff. Segregate and firewall. Everything and every company will get hacked. How you guys handle the duration of that hack and the post-hack is what will actually define how everyone else outside will see you. Make sure that if one machine gets compromised, it doesn't compromise your entire infrastructure end to end. Segregate things. Don't leave every machine communicating with everything on a flat network. And of course, have a minimum of common sense. You do not need a dildo connected to the internet. You do not need your coffee maker connected to the internet. You do not need all sorts of crazy things connected to the internet. make sure that when you're plugging a device on a network, you know what it's doing, what its functionality is, what sort of security measures were taken to protect you and that device. Okay, so now we're going to go into a bit of a live demo. And I think now I actually need like a microphone to go around to people. So, Barbara, can you give me a hand here? So who wants to go with a word? Anyone here? Well, we've got one person back there who needs a mic. Or you can shout it out. Let's see if I can hear it. Uranium. I doubt we're going to find anything like that in here, but we can give it a go. So let's just see. 23. Okay, let's try and open one. Like, these screenshots can get really big and have a lot of text. So if you guys can give me a hand at actually finding the word, it would be super helpful. Let's just see if the internet works here at Pixels. Come on. Hello, hello. Has anyone else been having problems with the Wi-Fi? Yeah, I know, right? Let's just try and open directly the image, see what happens. Can anyone already give me another word to go next? What? Bag. Why bag? Oh, bank. All right. So there is one word I will not type. I will not type sex. And I'll explain why. I've got no problem whatsoever with showing this on stage, even though I'm not sure if Pixels is for over 18s or whatever. But we actually found a Trojan that has been installed in Android phones in India that exposes all they're seeing on the screen to the internet with no authentication. So we've got lots and lots of Indian phones with porn on them. And I don't feel comfortable showing that on stage, but yeah. So let's just see if, okay, can anyone see uranium in here? Yeah, I know, it's gonna be hard, right? But we'll just give it a quick go. Come on, come on. You guys look up, I'll look down. Just give me another, oh, well, we had bank. Let's try bank. Let's pick one that's actually nice. We've got 481. Oh, we've got images coming into the pipe. Nice. Let's try this one maybe. See what happens. It's a really large image. By the way, one thing I wanted to mention while the image loads. Even you guys right now are at risk. The reason is very simple. When you connected to the Wi-Fi here at Pixels Camp, and it worked like that last year, I haven't confirmed this year, you actually got a public addressable IP address connected directly to the internet. Last year we did a scan and we actually found that lots of you guys had Mongo databases running on your laptops and Redis with production data from your companies. So make sure that if you're connected to the Wi-Fi, you've got firewalling on and all the services shut down as well. Let's just see if this thing loads. Come on. Maybe I'll switch to my Wi-Fi on my phone. Might be faster. In the meantime, I'll need more words, by the way. Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, I know it shows up because it's one of the things I like looking at. Oh, there we go. Hopefully there's the word bank in here somewhere. Jesus, there we go. So you've got a bank. And we find lots of things with bank, actually. We find people checking their bank accounts. We find all sorts of stuff. So we'll give it a go at Bitcoin as well. Bitcoin. Let's see if we find one that's minimally interesting. Come on, so slow. Yeah, I'll switch to my Wi-Fi because it will definitely be faster than... Well, you guys can see the word Bitcoin here, at least. And you've got lots and lots of stuff with Bitcoin. We'll give it one more. Guns. Jesus. Let's see. 213. Let's see. Is there anything interesting we can find? Or... Let's just see. Well, it's just a lot of RDPs. Maybe if we filter it down, actually. So remember I said Windows XP? Don't do it? Well, here's the case. See if these things open. Come on. Ridiculous. Eu faço aqui, deixa eu dar. Let's see if this thing works better like this. Nope. Yes, great. Murphy's Law. Nah, it's not good. Yeah, it's not working. Can you try and do a hotspot? Just see if we can do something here. Ethernet adapter, you're a lifesaver. This is great. Now it's gonna be really, really fast, I think.
Já não precisas então?
No.
Obrigada.
Será que chega? Já dá, já dá. Let's see if this works now. Turn Wi-Fi off. There we go. Woohoo! Nice. Okay, so what were we looking for here? Anyone remember? Guns. Can you see anything? Was this the one for guns? I don't really see it. Let's try another one. It's the one for guns, yeah. Let's just try one more. Not really finding. Give me another word. Red Star. Nah, Red Star is actually not Korea stuff and they don't have anything useful there. Rocket. Okay. Rocket League, you guys want to bet? There we go, Rocket League. So as I mentioned, we find lots and lots of stuff online. I could just go like this. Hopefully we don't get any of the things I mentioned earlier that I wasn't comfortable showing on stage, but there's nothing there. And yeah, this is what I wanted to show you guys very simply today. Do you have any questions for me? Yes? There's actually a question.
Okay. So I just want to ask you, so you are actually scanning the whole internet for this kind of ports and protocols. How is that, and you build a database with that information. How is that legal?
Right, very simple. So everything that we find or scan is things before pre-authentication. Let's say we find something that asks us to insert a username and password. We don't even try default usernames and passwords. That's why I said before when I showed you, for example, things with login, that I assumed that it might have a default password. We can't actually test for it. But anything else that's open on the internet that essentially we connect, identify what it is, it's absolutely fine. It's as if I open my browser and connect it to a random web server. And then we save that. Next question. Oh, yeah, we've got one here in front.
Great talk.
Thank you.
How long does it take for you to scan through the internet?
So right now, that's what we call a money problem. And it's a money problem because it's a matter of scalability. If you come to me and say, I need to scan 200 ports in a day, that has a necessary number of agents. And we've got auto-scaling on that sort of stuff. And if you pay me what our clients pay us, it, within a certain speed, we'll just spawn that amount of clients that will scan as fast as you need. Right now, I can tell you that we have close to 200 agents regularly scanning, and we're doing 200 ports per month of the entire IPv4 space. More questions? Yep, back there.
Hello.
Yep.
How do you lead with the temptation of pressing the login button, or not? And how do you ensure that your collaborators don't do it?
So that's actually a really good question, and funnily enough, I've never been asked that before. But it's something I spend a lot of time thinking about. There are actually two things I need to do from my job that take a lot of time. One of them is vetting our customers, and the other one is vetting the people that are going to work for us. So the vetting of the customers, I don't just sell to anyone. You can't just come as a company or an individual to BinaryEdge and say, I want to use your platform. We need to understand what you're going to do with the data. We constantly monitor, because you can't just do queries on our platform. You can actually launch your own scans on demand. For example, this was a scan of the entire country of Holland looking for index off, which is usually something a web server exposes if it's misconfigured. So a lot of my time, that is what I do, is vetting clients and vetting the people that are working for us. And of course, we have measures to monitor what's being executed on the platform as well. I can tell you, for example, that we detected 2 days ago that we had some jobs being launched to detect webcams in specific countries, and we try and understand why that was being done. And it was actually just a regular test trying to identify, we had someone that was trying to do a count of how many cams were exposed. But we do have measures in place to monitor that sort of stuff. It's the reason as well why, for example, lots of people come to us and say, oh, you guys are a competition of Shodan, for example. We're not. We're not, because we're not just open to anyone. We have to do a lot of vetting. We don't have as high number of clients because we choose who we want to work with. More questions? Over there.
Hello. Amongst those propositions of clients, how many do you deny or refuse to work for, like in percentage?
I don't know the percentage, but we do try to understand extremely well what the clients want to do with the data. We've had Russian people that sent us emails saying, oh, we want to use your platform, we're willing to pay, but then they came to a phase of the vetting where they couldn't explain what they wanted to do with our data, and we decided to not push forward with the contract with them. That's actually one of the benefits of having a smaller team as well. There's only like 8 of us in the entire company. It means we get to pick and choose who we want to work with, because we don't have such a higher burn rate as, for example, a much larger company with 50 or 60 people. So we get to be a bit picky on that. But it's really, we've got a vetting process to really understand what our clients do with our data. I can tell you that the majority of our clients are people like banks and telcos that essentially use our platform to scan their own infrastructure, or we also work with companies that do cyber insurance and cyber rating, where a company goes to these guys and says, I need you guys to give me cyber insurance. And they come to our platform, put the IP addresses of that company, and get an idea of the exposure of that company. And not just IP addresses, we actually have all sorts of things. For example, we also collect all sorts of data leaks that appear on, dark web, forums, whatever you want to call it. So for example, if I type here, let's try SAP, let's see if this actually works. So SAP.pt is affected by all of these leaks, and we can see which emails it was, where, in which leak it was found. And then they can come here as well and check the details of what was found in that leak. So for RuneScape, there were names, emails, the IP addresses, passwords, all sorts of things. So we don't actually just collect scanning data. Another thing we collect as well is torrent downloads. So we've got lots of agents that connect. They crawl all the torrent websites, pick a torrent, connect to that torrent, check who's downloading it, disconnect, and they constantly do this 24 hours for 24 hours, and we monitor who's downloading torrents. This is extremely useful for organizations like banks or critical organizations where you're not supposed to be downloading applications that might come with malware, or you're not supposed to be downloading porn, things like that. So we also sell that type of data to our customers. Next question. Back there, left.
When you find an exploit in some company or what else, how do you fix it? What are the measures?
So we don't, unless they're our customers. One thing that we don't do is work for free. So I believe it's Joker that has this really famous and most amazing sentence. If you're good at something, don't do it for free. And although we are a small startup, we would never work for free. We do try to give, so for example, if a company comes talk to us and they go, we don't know how good your data is compared to, for example, someone we're already working with, we give them a free report that comes with certain parts hidden. For example, they wouldn't be able to see, they'll be able to see they have RDP open to the internet, but they wouldn't be able to see in which IP address it's exposed. But we don't go and by ourselves notify entities with very specific exceptions. And I'll tell you one example of an exception. I live in Switzerland right now, and I've got bank accounts in 2 different banks. And while scanning the internet for one specific technology, we actually found that one of the banks I personally had a bank account in was exposing a database with all of their client session tokens to access e-banking open to the internet. And that I reported it because it was of benefit to me personally. But we as a company do not actively try to report these things because one, companies with much bigger budgets and people than we have try to do it and it's time wasted because you send an email to security and no one responds, or the response you get most generally is like, we're about to sue you guys, enjoy. And yeah, so we don't actively try to report these things unless it's something that we see that it's extremely critical, like the prison stuff we found last year on MQTT, we did try to report that, but we don't actively do it now. Anyone else has any more questions for me? Yes, one more there. How long do I still have? Oh, 20, it's all good.
Hello, Tiago.
Hello.
Have you run into any legal issues lately?
So, when I opened the company 3 years ago, as any other startup, we went to look for an investment round. And one of the conditions that we had with that investment round is that a team of lawyers would go through everything that we do, correlate it with the different laws, Switzerland, European law, and really give us a list of the things we are allowed to do and not allowed to do, for how long we can keep data, for how long we can't keep data, all that sort of stuff. And they gave us a set of guidelines. In the end, and this is my personal opinion, so don't take it as the one from my company, is that I believe that it's all about intent, right? If you see a hacker scanning, and the first phase of a recon is something that we do, it's similar between hackers and us, but we don't go to phase 2, which is attack, right? But it's all about intent. We will never intend to attack a company. And I think in the end, if we ever come before a judge, it will come down to that, to the intent. And we have sets of clients, sets of people that are prepared to vouch for us, that we've helped them improve their security, that we've helped them improve the security of their countries, because we also work with teams that handle infrastructure for entire countries. And that's the best we can do right now. Any more questions for me? Oh, again.
Yeah, that's following up. The thing is, let's imagine you scan the IP ranges for a given company, and then 2 weeks later, out of nowhere, the company is attacked, and they go looking for logs, and they find your IP addresses scanning all the network. Are you ready to deal with this kind of?
We already do. We already do. That happens actually to us very regularly. And what happens there is that we usually give these companies 2 options. One, we follow a blacklist protocol. That means if that company wants, they can give us all their ranges. We add it to our blacklist and we never touch them again, those IP addresses. Or the second option, we give them an API endpoint that provides them with all the addresses of our scanning agents, and they can block it on their end, because we've also had to deal with companies that did not want to give us their ranges. And that's what we do right now to deal with that sort of issues. And we haven't had a problem until now. Anyone else? No? Great. Well, thank you very much. And if you guys want to talk to us or try the platform, feel free to come up. Thank you very much.